Okay, I'm going to go through this here quick. 3.2, this starts on page 73, probably goes to page 75. That looks good. This really builds on the last section. You have to know and be able to identify those angle pairs. Terms I'm not going to write out. You have all these in previous sections. Corresponding angles, parallel lines you can find in 3.1. That's the previous page. Supplementary angles, vertical angles are in 1.6. You can look those up in your journal or your book, get those definitions down. I'm not going to write them up right here. But I expect you to fill these out. So this area should be, whoa, what is that color? I need to get rid of this background. That should be filled out for me up there. That should not be blank. Okay, theories. Everything is if two parallel lines have to be cut by a transversal. So we have to have parallel lines. Please notice that's one way we tell you parallel lines is that little arrow on there on both those lines. T is our transversal. Our transversal won't always be labeled T. It's more here for convenience so you can tell it's the transversal. Corresponding angles, if you look, 2 and 6, those are corresponding angles. 3 and 7 are corresponding angles. We have 4 more in here. Angle 1 should be congruent to which angle? Angle 5. And I should have mentioned, use the pause button to answer these. So we should have another one. I got 2, I got 3, I got 1. Let's do angle 4. Angle 4 is congruent to what angle? Hit that pause button. Good, you got it. Angle 8. Okay, so that comes up in there. And again, I forgot the main thing. Corresponding, if they're corresponding angles, they're congruent. So if you have the parallel lines, then the corresponding angles are congruent. Note this is a conditional. You've got to get this first. That's that theory of detachment. If you get the first one, then the second one's true. Same thing. All these start off the same. Two parallel lines in the transversal. Two parallel lines in the transversal. Alternate interior angles. We talked about those. If you have alternate interior angles, then they are congruent. So in this diagram, oops, I underlined the wrong congruent. 3 is congruent to 6. That's right there, right there. Those are your alternate interiors. 4 and 5. Those are your alternate interiors, so they're congruent. There are no other alternate interiors. That was only the one on the corresponding angles where they didn't list all of them. Alternate exteriors, same thing. Two parallel lines cut by a transversal, alternate exteriors are congruent. They give you 1 and 8, 2 and 7. Okay, and then we have one more. Now this one's a little bit different. This one is supplementary. Okay, so consecutive interior angles are supplementary. So that's 3 and 5. That's those ones. 4 and 6. There. I'd have rather have seen them right here. Measure, of angle 3 plus measure of angle 5 is going to equal 180. I could have written up the same equation for 4 and 6. Now, a lot of you are skipping these notes. You need to be getting these in. Okay, all these start off with the same. If two parallel lines are cut by a transversal, then. So, steps for doing these. Are the lines parallel? Okay, if the lines aren't parallel, none of those rules matter. Identify the angle pair name. Notice the little star here. Congruent and supplementary are properties. They are not angle pairs, okay? I want you going through this in the right angle. You can get problems right here guessing things. Congruent, supplementary. You're not going to get an A that way. You probably won't get a B. You might get a C, you might get a D, you might get an F. Okay, but don't guess. Follow the order. Identify the angle pair name. Oh, I got corresponding angles. Identify the corresponding property. They are congruent. Set up and solve your equation. That's an algebra skill. Make sure you answer the question asked. Are you asked to find x? Are you asked to find the measure of a specific angle in there? So let's get on to the practice here. this section goes a little quicker. So on number 1, so on these, I gave you this little relate to the given angle measure. So for number 2, I'm going to relate everything to the 63-degree angle. There's different ways you can do this. So for angle 1, I'm noticing, okay, I got my parallel lines. I won't usually write that out, but I have them. I check for it. 63 degrees and angle 1, those are corresponding. That gives me a congruent property, so I'm going to set it up. 63 degrees equals the measure of angle 1. Oh, that doesn't even require any work after that. We're done. Angle 2. Again, I got my parallel lines. These are consecutive interior. If you watch other videos and stuff, you may see them call these same side interior angles. That's another name for those. My property here is supplementary. So I have 63 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. I use my algebra to solve it. Measure of angle 2. And the way I do the subtraction, 180 minus 60 is 120. Minus 3 gives me 117. I don't do any borrowing. You've seen me do that before. There are better ways to do addition and subtraction than what your teachers taught you by hand. Okay, number 3. Again, I'm going to use this 95-degree angle. So I've got my parallel lines. I have vertical angles here for my 95 and angle 1. So I don't even actually need the parallel lines. That wasn't needed. My property is congruent. So notice you do have old angle pairs in here. They don't go away. Linear pairs, vertical angles don't go away just because we got some new definitions of angle pairs. The old ones are still there. Measure of angle 1 equals 95 degrees, and we're done. Again, parallel lines. I don't always write that out. I do look for it. I have corresponding angles for the 95 and 2. I'm looking at 95 degrees and angle 2. That property is congruent. So the measure of angle 2 also equals 95 degrees, which makes sense. 1 and 2 are alternate exterior, which are supposed to be congruent. I got the same measure for each of those. Okay, I'll let you do 4. Now, again, I wrote out the steps here. Don't skip them. I forgot to put in the... I should have put in here 0.5, which is my parallel lines. Make sure and I check that. And I see I got the parallel lines for number 5. I see that these are alternate exterior, which gives me congruent. I have x plus 12 equals 110 minus 12. X equals 110 minus 10 is 100 minus 2 is 98 degrees. So x is going to be 98 actually, not 98 degrees, but 98. The degrees is outside the parentheses. It's not a 98 degrees that goes in there. And that's it. They're asking for x. Now, sometimes they might ask you for this whole measure. Pay attention to that. That's when you've got to go, oh, that's 110 degrees or something like that. Number 6, alternate interior. I forgot to mention, you get this Z shape for alternate interiors. You can get it, you can see that, oops, that's not quite the Z. That's like a backward Z. There's a Z. It looks like an N. We can stretch these out a little bit, but these always give you those alternate interior angles when you have those lines on there. I forgot to mention that before. Number 8. So on this one, we don't have a relationship between the 2x minus 3 and the 153. So I can't solve this. I actually have to find angle 2 here first. So that's why they put the angle 2 in here. So there's actually two things here. So the 153 and angle 2, those are consecutive interior. So I have 153 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180. I subtract. And you've heard me do this before. 180 minus 150 is 30, minus 3 is 27. So that gives me 27 degrees. And then I have to do angle 2 and the 2x minus 3 are vertical. I don't need my parallel lines on those. So I know congruent is my property. 2x minus 3 has to equal 27. Do my algebra to solve it. 2x equals 30. X equals 15. And as we'd say in Hawaii, we are pow. That means we are done. Okay, you all have a good day. I'm glad I got that done. I didn't think I was going to get it done before class, so I'm pretty thrilled. And I lost my control here. Where'd my control go?